The one last story, I actually thought about starting the show with this, and it's kind of it's just an amazing story, and I call it the Minnesota Hustle, Equality, Not Forced Equity. I'm going to tell you, folks, I'm working on another book, and over the weekend, this past weekend, the previous weekend, I had lengthy phone calls with women activists in Minnesota who are very concerned about a new effort, ongoing and visible. You can see it on the ground in Minnesota. And it is an effort to push the use of the term of an equity agenda. And people hear it, they think, oh, equity, like, yeah, fairness. That's not what equity is. Equity is an outcome term, forced equity in results versus equality of opportunity. And this huge incident is going down in Minnesota. I want to start telling you about it. There is a school district called the East Carver County Schools in Minnesota. They had a racial incident or two in I think it was the spring of 2019. The school district, in response, in fact, let me just play some of the clips. Well, I want to get and play some clips for you to hear this story. But the quick point before we play that is this. These moms and a dad that you will see on this video, they are enormously brave. They are pushing against a radical left's effort to divide America, to divide a community, to divide a school district along racial lines and along religious lines. And I want to just, so these racial incidents happened, and the school in response did some things that are rather mind-blowing using taxpayers' money. So the very wonderful Matt, I think this is clip 2. Yeah, clip 2, if you have that.
Parents in eastern Carver County have had some concerns with recent decisions made by the superintendent and school board. Decisions that have pushed a political agenda and caused division into the schools.
In the winter of 2018 to 2019, there were some racial issues in Chaska High School. Vocal community activists formed a group called ROAR, Residents Organizing Against Racism, and protested to the school board to do something. They brought in a petition and called for the Chaska principal's termination. This petition began a series of events which allowed a toxic agenda into the schools, an agenda called equity.
The man hired to be the director of equity inclusion is Dr. Keith Brooks. Dr. Brooks pushes equity, not equality. There's a big difference. Equity, by definition, means that students will not be treated the same. Some students will be lifted up artificially, while others will be suppressed and shamed, because equity strives for the same measurable outcome for all, which of course is unachievable given the basic differences in all of us. Brooks states in his own words that whites must own their supremacy or they are dangerous. In his speech at Ed Talk, Brooks professes critical race theory, a technique used to divide society into antagonistic racial groups that can be manipulated to create chaos and revolution.
I'm telling you guys, not your tax dollars, unless you happen to be in Minnesota. Minnesota taxpayers are paying for the school district to respond to instances of racism, and I am not in the slightest questioning those instances. There were things that happened that weren't right. The school has to do something. But to go to the extreme of hiring this guy, this true cultural Marxist, this guy who is essentially, if you listen to that whole speech, it would keep you awake at night. He's basically saying all white people must admit they're guilty of white supremacy, that you must understand that all of society has to be readjusted, recalculated, reformed around race. And this is the guy going to heal racial division. Parents who try to protest against the hiring of this guy, the agenda he's involved in, are mocked and ridiculed. the parents who go along with this, who joined that Roar group, who ended up being awarded by the school positions on this equity council, who are backed by Soros organizations. In Minnesota, this is happening. Okay, so this is the first piece of it, the Ken Brooks thing, the Dr. Kenneth Brooks thing. There's another piece of it I want to play quickly, and then we're going to come back to the story a lot more on this show. But one more piece I want to play, clip 2, or I guess that's clip 3 there, the very wonderful Matt. Yeah.
Now, Dr. Khalifa is the man who was hired to do an equity audit, an equity survey, and to teach administrators in the district how to unlearn what they know.
Process of unlearning that has to occur with school leaders in order for them to create space in their head.
Shortly after he was hired, Khalifa's organization sent out 3 different surveys. One sent to parents, one sent to staff, and one sent to all students in grades 5 through 12 via email. The survey questions raised huge red flags. One of the questions was, how well, if at all, do you think white teachers in this school are at teaching minority students? It was outwardly racist and divisive. Why are we making our children call into question one's color and to consciously categorize teachers and their fellow classmates by the color of their skin?
These divisive questions pitted wealthy against poor, white against minority. There were also demographic questions that talked about whether a child was gender queer or gender fluid. Very personal information with very few security precautions.
We found a white paper written by Dr. Khalifa called Islamophobia and Christian Privilege, What Educators Must Know. This paper is a blueprint for elevating the culture of Islam above American culture in the schools. He uses words like Christian privilege to shame Christians and white privilege to shame white children. This is all a part of equity.
According to Khalifa, Islam is not a religion in the same sense as other religions, like Christianity or Judaism. He tells us that Islam is a culture which encompasses their faith into their lifestyle and therefore cannot be separated. Because of this, in Khalifa's eyes, Islam must be allowed into the schools and certain accommodations must be made to make Muslims feel welcome. These accommodations include things like prayer rooms and foot washing stations and a curriculum that brings Muslim community members into the school spaces, all paid for by you, the taxpayer. Khalifa also serves as a senior fellow at the Yaqeen Institute, an organization run by Muslim Brotherhood and anti-Semitic individuals.
Folks, even that little clip, I'm just urging you, if you're watching right now and you're thinking, I want to watch more of this, if you go to our website, americacanwetalk.org, on the homepage under shows, go down a list of links. There's a link to I believe to both of those, Dr. Khalifa and Dr. Brooks' statements. I'm getting to the close of my show pretty soon here. I'm going to turn to why it matters to you. But the reason I wanted to include this story in today's show is this. It could not be more important, imperative for Americans in this time to be alert to the efforts of radicals in this country to destroy the fabric of America. You have to see these instances like putting a fake witness on in the Trayvon Martin case, because we must perpetuate the headlines, the outrage. We must keep Americans of color angry, suspicious of their neighbors, resentful of their neighbors, seeing America as a country filled with racism. We can't look at the facts and be honest about them. We can even put on a false witness in a trial in order to perpetuate the America is a deeply racist, horribly divided country mantra. With women, what we saw with the defense of Dr. Blasey Ford, and the left just determined to defend her, even when none of the facts didn't add up. Many of the things she claimed just fell apart. But the left was more interested in the agenda of the Me Too, men versus women. The country's filled with people who are victims of sexual assault. This is a terrible country. Men are terrible. Women have to band together and vote Democrat. The left is more interested in spreading that menu than they are on doing anything else, such as pursuing truth. In this Minnesota case, I said we'll come back to it many times. What this district is in the middle of is having the school district itself, hiring 2 people to advise teachers, administrators, students, faculty, everybody in the school, their left-wing cultural Marxist, critical race theory mindset, which is basically, trying to make critical race theory it's some big elaborate thing. It's basically people saying because historically in America there has been a privilege among white people because of the history of slavery and Jim Crow and segregation, that we must, moving forward, resolve all issues by discussing race, break it down along race, have racial division in this country. These people who are hired to fix the racial tension in that school district are there to breed tension, to create it. This Khalifa guy, I'm going to have around time, but I'm going to bring it back another day. I've read his writing on what he thinks American schools must do to honor Islam. It is nothing short of the Islamization of this school district. And the parents trying to speak up, you saw in that video, are swimming upstream against a huge effort on the left, especially the Democrat government in Minnesota, to shut them down, to submit to this Islamization, to submit to this cultural Marxism.